Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jethro Sia, the Chief Finance and Externals Officer of DSC Loyola, and welcome back to Tech at Home 2020. This is our fifth week and our um, second to the last week for this webinar series. Stay tuned for more activities on DSC Loyola by subscribing to our YouTube channel and by following our Facebook page. And stay tuned for Tech at Home by signing up for the event at bit.ly slash Tech at Home 2020. For today we have a very special topic and guest speaker. Our topic will be tech in banking, the different applications technologies, and trends in the banking industry. And our speaker is Mr. Lito Villanueva, the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer of RCBC. So I'll pass the screen now to Sir Lito. Good afternoon, Sir Lito.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jethro, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar series that Ateneo is now spearheading. What you call the Tech from Home series. So I'll be sharing. Can you enable my screen sharing uh, feature?
Uh,
So I'll be sharing my screen for my deck.
Wait.
Yeah. Can you see it?
There. Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you so much again, and good afternoon to our virtual audience. So my topic for this afternoon is other, the response should also be unprecedented in terms of us being able to cope up with the challenges and with this during these trying times. And if you are to look at this, it's a screen. This came from an unknown source. We have seen that the fear zone, the learning zone, and growth zone. I think what is also evident here is the fact that during the first few weeks of the lockdown, all Filipinos were actually at the fear zone. I mean, this is a time where you could see most of the consumers were actually hoarding tissue paper, alcohol, etc. And now you could see them that because of social media, more information are now being shared across the public, and now we are at the learning zone. And now during in the next couple of weeks, and especially that Metro Manila has been declared to be under the MECQ, or the Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, we are now able to really, cope up with the reality that this particular, situation is really for the long haul. This will now be what they call the new normal, and it's now up to us to be able to to adjust to this new reality, and on how we can come up with our own ways of addressing all these issues pertaining to lots of things. Because again, the disruption is not just focused on banking and finance, on education, on schools, on aviation, on tourism, but practically across industries and sectors. Now, on your screen, you could see that by nature, in terms of course, our anthropology. I mean, Filipinos by nature are physically expressive. We are fond of beso beso. We are fond of embracing, shaking hands, etc. And because of social distancing, because of restricted mobility, we have seen the transition from that beso beso, that being tactile, that being so affectionate, with our loved ones, with our colleagues, etc. Now we are confronted with what we call social distancing, and in fact, even when we transition to MECQ from ECQ, most of the establishments have actually undergone several adjustments. I mean, having to put stickers on the floor, even on escalators, just to make sure that proper signs on social distancing would be observed by the public. Now, from a high touch engagement that we have done so far from post pre COVID-19, we will now be transitioning to a high tech no touch customer interface. So it's now a challenge or a major adjustment on the part of most businesses on how they will be able to cope up with this with this new reality, and again how we can still be able to provide the services needed by our customers in an entirely different approach. I mean, as I've said, on having to have a high-tech, no-touch customer interface. And again, I would want to emphasize the fact that while we are trying to transition into this particular reality, is that while we are trying to provide those services, it has to be demand-driven and empathy-filled. Meaning, there should be emotion, or there should be, sense of care and concern to your customer in terms of engaging them, for them to be able to to patronize your product and services. Now, what is also striking for the Philippines is that we are there's I think it is proper to state that it is a misnomer, or incorrect to say that we are batting for a cashless society. There is no such thing as a cashless society, but we are aspiring to have a cash light digital economy. And the good thing with the Philippines is that it is a combination of an offline and online, or online to offline transaction. And I call that a combination of physical and digital, and I call that digital. So, and the good thing here is that over 77%, or about 78% of our population are digitally savvy, meaning they are more exposed to having devices, to internet, and to social media. So it would be very easy for us to be able to communicate and to share awareness when it comes to us providing some campaigns for our intended products and services. Now, one of the things that we are also trying to push in terms of campaign is, we call it We Bounce Forward. So we even had the latest digital forum together with no less than BSP Governor Benjamin Jokno yesterday, and on the topic on pump priming a digital economy post COVID-19. So this is now within the framework of having to have within the framework of We Bounce Forward campaign of the FinTech industry as a whole. Now, what is one of our key advantages among the ASEAN countries would be the country's demographic dividend, because the population of the Philippines, which is close to about 108 million, we have the youngest population in the whole ASEAN region, and the median age is 24 years old. So the thing here is that about 44.4% live in urban areas, and the broad population would be living outside the economic center in Metro Manila. But still, the reality is that still 70% of the economic activities are actually still within, or is still NCR centric. Now, in most articles that we've read or that we've seen so far, I think this particular article was published last May 3, that there was this survey saying that among emerging economies, Philippines ranks sixth best in fighting versus COVID. Because I think one of the reasons why this survey would say that we are amongst the the top countries that could easily come out from the crisis would be because of our increasing urbanization, our growing middle income class. There's a large and young population, a strong consumer demand, vibrant labor market, robust remittances, and buoyant business activities. But of course, the vibrant labor market and robust remittances suffered major blows right now because there has been some prognosis or some uh, estimates that we might reach a double-digit unemployment rate, and our remittances are down because most of the most of our overseas Filipinos are actually out of work, and some of them are actually now back into the Philippines because the lockdown is not just concentrated in the Philippines but globally. So therefore, their jobs in those companies in other parts of the world have also been stopped because of this COVID-19. And of course, I think the Philippines leap towards being a upper middle income country would be in the near term from us currently at a ranking of a lower middle income economy. Now, I would like to now focus on how we could now do a balancing act between bricks and clicks. So bricks pertaining to brick and mortar, having to have the usual branches in several parts of the country, and you see that more than 50% of the branch networks of all the banks across the country have been shut off, have been closed because of the restrictions brought about by the expanded community quarantine. Now, therefore, there should be a way by which we could now be able to provide services to the public in lieu of the branches. So that's why we have now expanded our digital efforts in offering digital channels to our customers. Now, these are some of the quick wins that we've had from the time that ECQ started. For example, RCBC was able to secure a total of 7 approvals from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. We are the first bank to implement a free InstaPay and PesoNet transfers. We are also the top bank in terms of audience perception and public sentiments during the ECQ, with 80% positive and just 1% negative. We also experienced exponential growth in transaction volume and value, showing customer adoption and market traction. And we have signed a memorandum of understanding on the Mayang Sambayanihan, Hatid Ayuda sa Kababayan, with the Rural Bankers Association of the Philippines, NATCO, MASPEC. These are two biggest confederation of cooperatives in the country, and by its center on the disbursements of the social amelioration program of the government. And of course, we also secured the endorsement from the SWD for the use of our handheld ATM Go devices across the country. And we did a 3-day go live with 3 remittance partners for online send cash, and of course the quick onboarding of our new to bank clients for retail customers. Now, also, as I've said, we are taking the lead in the industry on ECQ SAP disbursement. SAP would mean the Social Amelioration Program. And I think you've seen that number, about 18 million Filipinos, 18 million families are eligible to receive between 5,000 to 8,000 grant from government, especially for those who have been affected by the lockdown. And of course, we are also proud to say that we are the country's first successful MPOS utilization in a crisis. And this is an example of how our handheld ATM is now being used by several partners across the country. And just to share with you some numbers, these are, again, as I've said, 3-digit exponential growth when it comes to adoption of digital services by the public. And in fact, we are close to about 2 billion in terms of dispersing the Social Amelioration Fund, including the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino. And we were now able to serve close to or more than 700,000 household or families that are eligible to receive the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino grant or even the social amelioration program. And the good thing here is that we are present in, I mean, these handheld ATM devices are scattered all over the country in about 72 out of 81 provinces nationwide. And the one on your right would be the numbers about the growth on InstaPay transactions, on cardless ATM withdrawal, and on other digital services. So these are, again, we have pivoted in terms of us creating a quick disbursement platform that we could now provide to the government, specifically DSWD. So we can now be able to disperse funds from government even to beneficiaries with or without mobile phones. In fact, as you could see here, even Congressman Joyce Salceda commended RCBC for being a trailblazer in pushing for digital innovation that would serve the best interest of the public. And to share with you some of the testimonials of our clients, of customers who have experienced the digital services of RCBC. I think this is just a good way of measuring the success or failure of any undertaking. And with this, we could see the value of how these digital interventions are now being embraced by the public. And I think even post COVID-19, we could see the sustained um, adoption of the public of all of these digital channels. Now, in terms of how do we now commercialize our work from home digital efforts, no? And I think I would say that I could now summarize that into 6 items, no? How to be proactive, agile, how you could anticipate things that will happen, how you could be responsive, quick, and quickly execute. So right now, there is no telling when or how this pandemic will end. But one thing is for sure, there is no going back to how it was before. So the crisis forced Filipinos to go digital given the limited mobility, evidenced by exponential growth in numbers in terms of consumer adoption and topping the audience perception during these extraordinary times. Hence, I would say that digital hybrid will be the new normal. So the key is that we should be reimagining banking after COVID-19. And as I've said, these are some of the things that we are now doing. So just to again share with you, this was done yesterday, and we had about over 25,000 participants or virtual participants, online viewers during this event, and it was positively received by several netizens that this is really indeed a very insightful digital forum led by no less than BSP Governor Jokno in terms of how fintechs play a bigger role in post-pandemic digital economy. So, of course, there has a lot of discussions are now going on, especially in Congress and the executive branch, on the recovery plan of the government. Of course, because of limited resources, I mean, they are now saying that about more than a trillion pesos would be is now being readied for us to be able to recover faster, as compared with other Asian neighbors. But I think we have seen how fast government work specifically BSP in terms of providing both fiscal and monetary interventions on how to quickly address those issues pertaining to the lockdown. So, and lastly, if I may share with you, this is just an actual photo taken in Marinduque. This guy is has a airtime loading business in Marinduque, and he was able to disperse over 5 million pesos already to DSWD beneficiaries. So again, because of COVID, because of social distancing, Filipinos would have ways of being creative of how ingenious they are in terms of coping with the crisis. So in this particular case, the our partner, our payout partner, Chris in Marinduque, is handing out the uh, cash on a stick, right? So this is an example of how creative Filipinos are. And I think I just would like to impart and share with our audience that there are key imperatives, during the crisis. And what we've learned is that we have to come up with digital products and services or digital initiatives that are both relevant and responsive. So we have to make sure that the products that we are offering to our consumers would be something of value, would be something of relevance to their daily requirements. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sir Lito. That's a
Yeah,
very interesting talk. So for our audience, I think we can accept questions now. You can type your questions in the YouTube comment section or the Facebook comment section. Okay, I think there are no questions yet, but I have one question, Sir Lito.
sure, sure.
Uh, I think fintech really is the way for like every other country in the world, right? Uh, but what are the biggest challenge or challenges being faced by banks or the fintech industry in general here in the Philippines?
Well, one of the key barriers really is still the absence of a national ID system. While the Philippines was able to, Congress was able to pass the bill on national ID system or PhilSys way back in 2018, um, and it was signed into law by the president. The execution or implementation of such law was never didn't materialize. So, but the good thing here is that we have seen the president making a statement that he will prioritize it, that the government will prioritize it in terms of execution or implementation, and he committed that the first phase will happen sometime October this year. So, because in the absence of a national ID system, the delays in the disbursement of the social amelioration fund, that should not have happened in the first place. So there will be a much easier and seamless way of disbursing those funds to those people who are in need of assistance from government.
So it's more like record keeping, lack in the technology thereof.
Not really. It's really more on because we are one of the very few countries in the world that still do not have a national ID system. So, because remember, if you have a national ID system in place, any communication, any disbursement, any assistance from government would be much easier in terms of implementation because you would be avoiding potential fraud or potential corruption because there's so much transparency, efficiency, and speed when you have a national ID system in place. So because right now I think you've seen a number of reports or media articles or media reports wherein a number of allegations such as, for example, some LGUs or some officials in government would not be giving the entire amount of subsidy to their constituents, because that is the difficulty now of having a cash heavy economy, right? And there's no way of really trying to check on how they manage to disperse the funds. And because of tracking, because of audit, because of those things, there's no way by which we can easily track how those cash have been dispersed by at the level of the local government units.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think we have some questions. There's this one from Alimar Villabrille. Uh, from her, she said, I believe majority of your clients message your Facebook page to ask questions about payments, loans, or application, etc. Have you ever considered installing chatbot to make active and real-time response to your customers' concern?
Yes, chatbot is definitely one of the tools by which you can, you can support, you can promote customer experience or awesome customer experience. Because again, um, the primary objective is really on how you can optimize available technologies out there or platforms to ensure a seamless consumer experience. So chatbot is definitely one of those tools.
Okay, thank you, sir. Uh, and now we have a question from Harvey Jay Sison. His question is, what steps did RCBC do to shift into a work from home setup? How long will this be implemented?
Okay. Well, in fact, we are in our case for my digital group in RCBC. We started doing work. We started the work from home mode even a week prior to the official declaration of the ECQ. And in fact, the good thing with RCBC, we have, I think, one of the best, if not the best, BCP or business continuity program in place, and it's being led by our president, Eugene Acevedo, assisted by Dennis Bangkod. And in fact, even during those early months of the outbreak, it was not yet declared as a pandemic by the WHO. It was just a health emergency status in the few mo- in the no, in the last quarter of 2019. Our BCP has been active and coordinating efforts with the rest of the other groups across RCBC and across the Chenko group of companies. So I think I'm very proud to share with you that the BCP of RCBC is, I think, one of the best, if not the best, prepared BCP plan out there, and that's why we were able to respond to it much quicker than the rest. So I think because even our IT in terms of providing the tools, practically we were able to mobilize everybody, and there was no um, suspension of work or suspension of transactions. It was a seamless way of doing things as if it is business as usual. So the good thing there is that the key is definitely having to have a very good BCP in place.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. We have another question from Wesley George Amador. The question is, when do you think the Philippines be fully on digital? And how about the other areas without internet coverage? How big is the digital divide within the Philippines?
We have seen a number. Okay. Echoing what PSP governor said yesterday, the forecast is that he forecast that his forecast was about more than 50% of Filipinos transacting digitally in the next 3 years. No? So by the time that his term expires by 2023, the projection is that more than 50% of Filipinos could be on digital channels, and I think that forecast will be a reality, and there will definitely be more than 50% because I think beyond COVID-19, people who tried uh, doing digital transactions would no longer go back to the traditional way of doing business.
Okay. We have another question from Jayson Dwight Catindig. Uh, what do you think is the advantage of a bank as compared to an e-payments company in transitioning to the new normal?
Okay, so okay, there are two types, right? So for e-wallets, the likes of Remaya, Gcash, Grab, etc. So these are e-wallets. These are they are classified to be the electronic money issuers. So they are also licensed by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Same way that banks are also regulated by the BSP. So, but the big difference is that e-wallets would not have would have limits in terms of the amount or the threshold. So you can only keep about a max of 100,000 pesos in an e-wallet, and there is no interest there. So it's not interest bearing because it's not a deposit account. Unlike in a bank, for example, you have a deposit account. It's a savings account, and it bears interest. So the good thing here is that because of digitalization, most banks, for example, even RCBC now has a basic deposit account wherein you could now get or apply for a basic deposit account online or digitally, and you earn an interest out of that, right? So I would say that again, there is no single entity that will not be able to address the huge problems of the country when it comes to digitalization. So I am an advocate of open banking, wherein we should thrive in a community of collaborators and being able to partner with lots of platforms, lots of fintech players in the industry, for us to be able to serve a common, for us to be able to realize or fulfill a common goal, which is really to come up with an inclusive digital finance in the country.
Okay. We have another question from Franz Taborlupa. Uh, does RCBC implement machine learning processes to be able to predict necessary information, especially with regards to these challenging times?
Yes, in fact, RCBC is one of the very few banks that has a very professional and uh, world class data scientist by the name of Marita Bueno, and she has a very dynamic and very good uh, data science team, data science analytics team, and definitely machine learning is a component, is a tool by which this data scientists of ours are utilizing for us to be able to come up with the best fit or the best products that would be required by the public, and also understanding the demographics in terms of the requirements of our consumers. So the thing here is that machine learning is one of those tools that we are optimizing, that we are leveraging on, and again, as what we all know, that data is the new oil, right? So how extensive your data is will really spell the success of your undertaking. So that's why in any undertaking, it has to be data driven. So you don't get to things without you having not to be backed up by a by data in the first place.
Okay. I think we'll accept uh four more questions. Is that okay, sir?
Okay, yeah. Last four.
Sige, sige. Uh Dylan Josh Domingo Lopez has another question. Do you think a highly personalized banking and customer services through AI as such are possible in the near future for the fintech industry in the Philippines?
It's now happening. Personalization is happening now. And we all know that customers would have different ways of doing things. They have unique ways of unique demands, unique needs, etc. So the why one thing that will thrive in the digital ecosystem now is on how you could personalize your offer to your target market, right? That's why your data or your machine learning, those tools would be necessary for you to be able to personalize those services. So personalization is already happening right now, and that is your edge over your competitors. Because remember, there are over 4 million mobile apps in the world right now. So how many apps would you be able to download and keep in your mobile device? So of course you cannot keep, Facebook, Twitter, and so your social media accounts are all considered to be mobile apps. But the thing here is, how can the other mobile apps that belong to that over 4 million mobile apps in the world be able to fit into your mobile device? So the thing here is that how can you capture the imagination and how you could now capture the interest of your consumer for them to be able to keep your mobile app, and for not just them downloading your app but them using your app, because acquiring a customer is quite easy, but keeping them and making them use your app is another different story altogether. So I think what is critical here is on how good you are in terms of coming up with ways on how you strategize your approach in terms of acquiring customers and keeping your customers in your system and making them use your services.
Okay, I think we have like a follow-up question on that matter.
Yes.
Uh, Again by Alimar Villabrille.
Okay.
Uh, are there any sample projects or programs that you use machine learning or data science?
Yes. Well, in fact, for example, you use machine learning in cross-selling products. So, for example, in any organization, for example, a bank, or let's say RCBC, if a customer has a savings account or just a current account or maybe has a credit card, so definitely you have to optimize ways on how you can make that customer that is now just utilizing one product in the bank. Say, for example, a credit card holder. How can you make that credit card holder be able to open an account, savings account, for example, or a current account? Or how can you entice that particular customer to also take out a loan, take out a housing loan or an auto loan, for example? So because of machine learning, you will now be able to see whether this particular client has the propensity to would have the propensity in terms of of the consumption behavior or the financial capacity to even afford to have the need for a consumer loan, such as home or auto loan or even a personal loan or a salary loan. So because of data, because of machine learning, you will now be able to second guess your customers as to what they would be needing. I think you experience this for some of you, that you are receiving some messages or some social media posts or some messages from social media, as it is as if they were able to read your mind, that you are actually asked, you are been thinking of a particular merchandise to buy or to purchase.
Yes,
So
sir.
because that's part of machine learning, right?
Okay. Uh, we have another question from the uh, tech team or tech department of DSC Loyola. Uh,
Okay.
are there steps that RCBC is taking so that customers can encash checks, especially if they can't go outside?
Yes, we have initiatives, or we already have an existing service where we call it the mobile check deposit. So if you have an existing RCBC checks, you don't need to go to any branch to deposit it, and you can just take a photo of that check, and you could now deposit it to the mobile app. So that is an on-us check, meaning a check issued within RCBC. But we are also about to launch another feature of the mobile check deposit, which will be intended for off-us checks, meaning checks issued by other banks to be deposited to an RCBP account. So in the next 2 months or so, we will be able to launch that. So meaning, if a customer, may it be individual or corporate clients, do not need to go to any RCBC branch to deposit those checks, because they can just take a photo of it using their mobile app, and and it will now be credited to their respective accounts.
Okay, that's very cool, sir. Uh, I think we have another question from Franz. How do you ensure bank security is always in place in RCBC? What steps do you take?
Okay, so in any digital product or service, before launching it to the market, even before getting an approval from the BSP, first things first. I mean, the primary consideration has always been security, because we know that cybersecurity has been a major concern by most consumers, and we have seen the proliferation of cyber attacks, cyber crimes, and hacking of the systems, etc. And I think what is critical as well is on how we would be able to, promote trust amongst the consumers in terms of their adoption to digital channels. So we have to make sure that security is primary, ensuring the safety and security of each customer doing transactions digitally. So that's why part of the investments that we are putting in would be on the security infrastructure.
Okay. Uh, I think we have a last question
Okay.
from Miss Pau Esteban.
Mhm.
What is needed to ensure that the country's transition to digital is inclusive?
Okay, good thing. Good question. I think that has been the thrust of the governments, particularly the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and we have been advocating for an inclusive digital finance. When you say the word inclusive or inclusion, it means that practically everyone. I mean, walang maiiwan, lahat kasama, right? So regardless of age, regardless of social status, regardless of income level,
Yeah.
everyone should be part of it, especially those people who are in the margins, those people in the countryside, because the Philippines still has about 68% of Filipinos without bank accounts, and that is still a sizable amount. And I think another thing is that we have a in that would translate to something like close to 53 million Filipinos having no savings account at all. And I think Philippines is also has the highest in terms of percentage of individuals taking out loans from friends and family members. So that's why we have a lot of Filipinos that are now trapped into illegal illegal lenders or loan sharks because they don't have access to formal financial system. So inclusivity or inclusive digital finance would mean having to have access to savings, loans, investments, payments, and even insurance. So what this is what I call sachet banking. So if Filipinos or the Philippines thrive in having sari-sari stores, my question is how can we not have sari-sari scores, or in terms of providing credit scores to all Filipinos? And how can we now be able to provide sachet banking in terms of pushing for or promoting financial services like sachaying it, like for example getting an insurance policy for as low as 50 pesos, or opening a savings account at 20 pesos or 50 pesos, so without you having to have a required amount to open an account, just like in several banks. Of that's why BSP came up with a regulation of basic deposit account. You can open an account without you having to put in a single centavo in your account. So you can open an account, and eventually once you earn something, then you could now put that cash into your basic deposit account, because that is the way forward, because what we intend to do is to have transactional accounts for every Filipino, so that they will now be able to come up with establish their own credit scores that will now make them eligible for low interest loans eventually.
Uh, okay, I think that's all, but I have like one follow-up question for this question.
Sure.
Uh, what can we as students or members of student organizations do to at least like help with this movement to for the inclusivity of fintech or the financial services?
Well, I think one thing for sure that in terms of your support, in terms of your participation, is more on how you could be an agent in terms of disseminating information. I mean, not fake news, but the real campaign in terms of how Filipinos would be able to access financial services and how digital services would really change the Philippine landscape. So I think maybe after this discussion, we could have another discussion with your team on how we can collaborate on expanding the awareness of the Filipinos when it comes to digital transformation. There are only 2 points that I would want to raise here before I end. To your point, that's why I think that's critical in terms of your participation here, the school or the university, or you being a campus leader, is on how we can uh, join forces in terms of financial literacy and digital education. There are two types, no? So financial education is one, digital literacy is another one. So that's why I think if we can, join forces in terms of us being able to provide the awareness campaign when it comes to adoption of digital services by a greater majority of Filipinos.
Okay.
The country. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, sir. That's very wonderful. That's amazing. Do you have any comments, or do you want to say anything to our viewers?
Again, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you spending time on this particular digital forum initiated by your organization. And I look forward to more collaboration with you and how we can move things forward and expedite things and push the country towards a robust digital economy. And that's what we say. We all bounce forward. Thank you so much, and
Yes.
good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, so for everyone, thank you very much for attending the talk. Uh, if you want to know more of, if you want to uh get updates from Tech at Home, you can follow our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, then follow our Twitter and Instagram accounts, then like our Facebook page. So that's all, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our webinar.